Welcome to this edition of Policy Connections. Today we're privileged to have the Secretary of State Ben Ysursa. Thank you for being here today, sir.
Good to be here, Alex.
We have a few questions to ask you, short period of time. First thing I think we'd like to talk about, your role on the land board. There's a lot of issues going on with respect to federal lands and state lands, as well as some land board issues. Can you kind of give us an idea of what you can expect over the next 8 months?
Well, we're right in the middle of course, we have a legislative committee dealing with the transfer of federal lands to state ownership, similar to what happened in the state of Utah. And as a land board member, we of course are actually a 1982 constitutional amendment made it clear, Sagebrush Rebellion 1, let's call it, that the Constitution was actually amended to indicate that the land board would take over after acquired lands from the federal government under the mandate in Article 9, Section 8, which is to maximize the long-term financial return for beneficiaries, and in this case, it'd be, if not specifically granted, it'd be the state in general. So we're going to be watching that committee very, very closely. I would hope we can do a lot better job managing lands than the federal government can, especially in the timber area. I would hope we could get a pilot project of some way to go. To me, it's a legal non-starter that we're going to take over the lands. But if we can get our foot in the door and maybe do some management projects to show how we can manage land better for everybody and keep the fire suppression efforts out there, I think it'll be very, very interesting. We got to get to be concrete and specific, not just ideological statements that we ought to take over the land. Other parts of what the land board's doing right in the middle of a protracted battle over cottage sites. What we're trying to do, our statement and our position is that we're going to try to dispose of those cottage sites in a market-savvy manner, whatever that means. That was my motion. So right in the middle of that, potential lawsuits, whatever. But I think before the end of the calendar year and maybe part of next year, we're going to see some exchanges accomplished, both at Priest Lake and Payette Lake, and they might be baby steps, but we're making progress to get out of the cottage site scenario.
Talk to us about the upcoming primary and general elections. Obviously, you manage all of those for the state. Changes, improvements, differences, anything new that we can expect?
Well, in the next, the even year election, we'll certainly have the May 20th primary and the November general. We work in elections. I think Idaho has an open, accessible system. I have 44 partners. Each county clerk is the chief election official of the county. And together with our office, we try to conduct fair and efficient elections. I think we do a pretty good job of it. Of course, our prayer and every elected election official prayer is large margins. We expect a very vigorous turnout. A lot of what's going to happen, of course, is the statewide officials are all up for election, who's going to run for what, and those decisions being made probably near the end of the year will decide who's really running for office. It'll be the first statewide campaign with the closed primary. 2 years ago was a presidential year. The legislature, of course, had a closed primary. They're up every 2 years. But we're going to see the first statewide election for our statewide constitutional officers with the closed primary. What difference that may or may not make remains to be seen.
Your office is also obviously very, very much about transparency in the political arena, whether that's dealing with lobbyist disclosures and or dealing with campaigns themselves. Tell us a little more about what your office's ongoing efforts are to improve the transparency of the interaction in the political system.
Well, as you're aware, and IACI has done a good job of this all through the years, transparency is not a partisan issue, it's a good government issue. And it's always been our goal, and that's the goal of the Sunshine Laws, is to be transparent and get disclosure. Disclosure is no good unless you get it out there. And we have a very accessible website. As soon as folks file documents, they're scanned and they're put out, as I say, warts and all, out on the internet so other people can see them. We're into online filing for lobbyists. We are also going to do some we're looking at online filing and right in the middle of developing it for campaign disclosure. this next time around to make it easier for everybody. But the key point is, and we're able to do it right now, we hope to get better at it, but we have pretty instantaneous disclosure on the website for folks to have, the press folks, you folks, everybody else who wants to look at it. And it's there, and it's a public disclosure law, but we've got some online technology coming on our campaign end that I hope will be up and running for the next election.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being here today for this edition of Policy Connections, and tune in next time for Policy Connections from IACI.